A lot of people always make the snide remark, oh, who buys Call of Duty games for the campaign anyway? I do. I am that person. For the last 13 years since getting into Call of Duty at a young age, the most exciting part of a game for me was to play the campaign. The original Modern Warfare trilogy, Black Ops 1 and 2, World at War, Infinite Warfare, all contenders for what I think are some of the best campaigns in the series. In my opinion, the campaign was the one mode where COD games rarely ever messed up. At worst, you'd get something just kind of okay, maybe mid, you could say, like COD Ghost, Advanced Warfare, or 2022's Modern Warfare 2. However, when a campaign was bad, it could be really bad. 2023's Modern Warfare 3 is what I'd consider to be by far the worst campaign in the entire series, and it really wasn't close. It's only followed by Black Ops 3, which still had a couple nice things about it, despite being just a mess in almost every way possible. And of course, Call of Duty Vanguard, which I really don't think is all that terrible, but it's definitely on the low end because the writing wasn't great and it was mostly a forgettable campaign. But Modern Warfare 3 specifically was a bizarre case, as this was the first direct sequel to release a year after its previous installment in its subseries. And not only did it just feel more like a DLC in the campaign, it felt rushed, it felt cheap. There was many negatives you could go on about when it comes to this campaign. I can't really name any positives, as the most positive thing I have to say is that the first mission of the game is alright. The year after that, in 2024, we saw the release of Black Ops 6. This game as a whole is just absolutely frustrating because there is a lot of good here, but also a hilarious amount of bad and just plain stupid decisions here too. But the campaign was actually almost good, some of the highest highs I've seen in a COD campaign to date, with also some absurdly low lows as well. But then in 2025, we got ourselves another direct sequel, released a year after its previous game, Call of Duty Black Ops 7. The least hyped Call of Duty ever. Finally, a sequel to Black Ops 2, something we really never got, as Black Ops 3 was honestly its own thing, and Black Ops 4 never had a campaign but still tried to tell a story that still was kind of its own thing. But here we finally get to have a direct follow-up on the events of Black Ops 2, and wouldn't you be surprised to know that this is by far the worst campaign in the series. To be quite honest, I wasn't even excited for the campaign. The more I heard about it, referring to it as a co-op campaign, revealing a mastery camo. No, you did not mishear me. The campaign has a mastery camo, but that's not all. And even on the menu, it just says co-op campaign. However, you can turn off squad fill and play the game completely solo. This game is such a clusterfuck, I really had no idea where to start. But before I do start, because I'm going to start with the gameplay, but I will be spoiling most, if not all, of the game. So if you actually care and want to play it or watch it, then go do that and then come back, or don't, but don't say I didn't warn you. When I started my playthrough, I noticed the game never asked which difficulty I wanted to play on, which is weird, but it seems to be that there just isn't one. So what I'm guessing is that the difficulty is scaled based on how many are in your squad. I would hope so anyway, because honestly this campaign felt extremely easy. I rarely went down. I think I got knocked down like maybe 3 times. But this is a forced co-op campaign. I did think that there would be like AI teammates, kind of like Halo 5 if you played solo, but no, you are by yourself, but the other characters talk like they are still here. They talk on the radio like they're, somewhere nearby, and it's very uncomfortable. And due to this being a forced online co-op campaign, it means the game is always online, meaning you cannot pause the game for any reason, meaning you can and will be kicked for inactivity. And you may be asking, since it's a campaign, surely there is checkpoints you can reload. No, you gotta restart the entire mission, no matter how far into it you were. There is checkpoints in the case of you dying and respawning, sure, but if you get kicked, you have to restart it. In regards to its actual gameplay, the core mechanics are just, Call of Duty, of course. Shooting guns feels fine or whatever. But one of my biggest gripes is that this does not play like a Call of Duty campaign at all. It felt way more like somehow a worse DMZ or Modern Warfare Zombies, or just playing Warzone in general. That's just all it felt like to me. There is 11 missions in total. Half of them feel somewhat similar to the usual linear design, albeit wider, to make more room for a 4-player squad to run around in with this advanced movement. When it comes to level design, it's just kind of whatever, you know, I don't have much of a problem. The visuals of the linear levels, however, do almost all the heavy lifting for them, which is really sad because they do actually look very cool. Some remind me a lot of what Black Ops 3 was trying to do. There is the other half of the missions. If you guys played Modern Warfare 3, you'll remember the open combat missions. Those lame open world levels that felt like running around a Warzone map. So yeah, we are just straight up on a Warzone map, full stop. They're not even hiding it this time. And there really wasn't even much of a reason to even make these levels like this. Even the open combat missions did the bare minimum of having things you could find around the levels, but here, everything you find is in the main areas you need to be. There is no reason to go out and explore. And what made me realize this is because in one of the later levels, I was running around it, and I went and looked inside this building to see if there may be like any weapons or anything I could switch out what I had, and there was nothing. There was nothing in the building whatsoever. I'm just running around doing fuck all for no reason. These are also some of the most tedious levels of the game. They basically just make you run around and do busy work and just do some really dumb task and then make you run long distances to do another one. Like, the task itself wouldn't even be the problem, but it's the fact that you're making me run across this map and doing like a boring, just nothing quest, and then run like 500 meters another direction to go do another one. Like, one of them was making you run over to a VTOL just to sit on it and then wait for it to fly around until it crashed. Yeah, sure, what the hell, sure. There was one key standout mission, however. I forgot the name of it, but it was the Japan level. The level starts off with some stealth. You know, it is Call of Duty, so the stealth is very basic and just not good, but it feels very much like a traditional COD campaign level, in the best way possible as well. I really liked this parkour section running across the rooftops. It was like a bargain bin Mirror's Edge. Really good stuff. And it also had some great visuals too. Except for this billboard that very much is a Modern Warfare 2 or 3 calling card. I know this is a calling card that they're reusing because I have this. I think this was really the only level where I didn't actually feel completely lifeless playing the entire time. Of course, it does end with a VTOL boss fight on the roof. However, I didn't really find it that bad. It was probably one of the least offensive boss fights in the entirety of the game for me. A lot of the other linear missions had their moments, but they fell completely flat towards the end for me, but this one in particular I found enjoyable. There was another standout one that isn't perfect, and in fact I don't even think it's that great, but it's this Vorkuta mission. In the beginning, the atmosphere is really, really good. It does kind of take a turn in a way that I didn't expect, and it's got some really funny moments in it, but then it kind of ends off with just repeating the Vorkuta mission from Black Ops 1. Just not as good, not as thrilling or anything like that. But, you know, it's not terrible. It could have been a lot worse, and I know, because there is a lot worse in this game. You had a lot more boss fights in this game, which makes sense given it's meant to be a co-op game. There is this fight with this Dr. Faulkner guy, and his health bar is so hilariously low, it made me die laughing that the devs genuinely just implemented a health bar for this guy. There was no reason to do this. Two of the boss fights are completely just ripped from Black Ops 6 Zombies. They feel like they're way more fitting there. And at first, I was really negative towards them, and I hated their existence, and I didn't think that they worked very well. However, the more I look at like footage of them and think about what I played, unfortunately, these are the most mechanically like advanced boss fights in the game. Sure, you have to take them out the same way by shooting stuff, you know, but they offer way more mechanically compared to those other boss fights. You gotta make sure you're always moving, that way you don't get hit. They spawn other enemies to attack you. They have different things you have to shoot at, like weak spots and stuff like that. They have a multitude of different attacks, and that just makes it way more engaging compared to every other fight in the game, because every other fight boils down the same way. There is this Razor boss fight, which does shield himself every now and then, but even then, you take him out kind of the same way compared to these two. And yes, I am talking about the Harper boss fight. Everyone hates it, and I think it's very stupid too. However, if we want to talk about pure gameplay mechanics, this and the Woods boss fight offer way more in terms of gameplay variety. Like, you have a mechanic with the Harper fight where you just jump over a beam or else you take damage, and while it's nothing crazy or even too interesting, it keeps you on your toes way more than any other time during this game. And so, While I don't like either of these boss fights too much, I don't hate them or even dislike them. In fact, I think, honestly, they might be two of the parts that I have nothing bad to say, just because they at least try to offer a bit of variety in the campaign's gameplay and the boss fights. The last boss fight at the very end of the game is also just very stupid. You basically fight a stationary mech 3 times, and that's it. It's very pointless to have. Something really stupid that I noticed was that the regular soldiers just progressively get tankier as the game went on, and for no real reason that I felt. There was multiple different kinds of soldiers, but they all did the same thing, right? Some were just actual tanks, some were regular, foot soldiers. There was also these guys with the shields as well, and they were quite annoying, but honestly, they added more to the game than any of the other enemies did, so whatever. I thought they were fine. But there is these upgrade station things that improve the rarity of your weapons, and they give you a slight damage increase. And from how it's introduced, I thought that there was going to be a lot of them hidden throughout the levels to find, and if you liked a gun enough, you use it to upgrade, kind of like in zombies, right? That's not how that works. Not even in the slightest. It basically works as a permanent upgrade for all weapons you find as you progress forward in the campaign. However, when you use it at first, only the weapon you are holding gets upgraded, not the one that is holstered for whatever reason, but every gun you find on the ground from that point forward is upgraded, so I'm kind of confused why they even went about it like this. And to make matters worse, the enemies also get tankier. So it just completely nullifies the existence of these upgrade benches, when the weapon you just upgraded only feels like it is a better weapon for like the first combat encounter you face right after, and it immediately feels like it did before you upgraded it. There is also these abilities. You get to have 2 of them equipped at once, and I'll say it, some of them are quite fun. In fact, I actually think they keep it from being a 0 out of 10. They make it a 1 out of 10, I'll be honest. You got things like a super jump, active camo, a Black Ops 6 war machine because they just had to reuse that model, and a grappling hook. What do you expect? It's the best thing in the game. It really is. It has an almost non-existent cooldown, and you can spam it like a madman, so I'm just over here running around looking like a Dollar Tree Spider-Man. It's probably the one thing I wish I had throughout the entirety of the game. You can find bins that have like weapons, equipment, and the abilities, but not too often in a lot of the linear levels. But anytime I saw the grappling hook, I was grabbing it immediately. I did not care. The issue I do find with the inclusion of these abilities, though, is that I feel like you don't really make much use of them in the campaign. It isn't until you beat the campaign and unlock Endgame. Now, I've only played this mode once, but it feels sort of like DMZ, which was not a mode I particularly cared for. And I feel like this was something they more than likely put more time into this time around than the campaign, given how often the game keeps throwing you into the Avalon map. I don't really have much of an issue with this mode particularly. As I said, I don't really care. I'm not an extraction shooter guy, so I was never going to like this mode anyway. But this mode absolutely makes the most out of the mechanics this game throws at you, and I kind of just am sitting here confused why this isn't like labeled as like a 4th mode or just outright replacing the campaign. I think it does try to like be part of the story, but honestly I didn't pay enough attention when playing it. And I say this because all sorts of Warzone mechanics invaded this campaign, from armor plating to self-revives, which are very common in this game. I don't know if it was due to me playing for the first time solo, but there was a lot, and I'm not really a fan of the inclusion of these mechanics. Especially the armor plating. COD campaigns tend to have annoying-ass enemies as it is, and having to plate up every 5 seconds, at least for me, is just irritating to play. But now, I'm going to talk about my biggest criticism of this campaign, the writing. Black Ops 1 and 2 are games that are typically praised for their surprisingly good writing for a COD game, interesting and well-written stories with memorable and well-crafted characters, paired with some great performances as well. This game has pretty much none of that. This is where all the spoilers will be if you care, but honestly, I don't think it matters much. This game somehow struggles more than Black Ops 6 did with trying to fit into the Black Ops timeline, and honestly, it's probably the one thing I don't like about these newer Modern Warfare and Black Ops games. Modern Warfare doesn't really have much of this issue because, they kind of rebooted and did their own thing. But this game still tries to connect itself to the original Black Ops games, and I just don't think it really works that well. Now, I will admit, I didn't have the highest hopes when it came to this aspect in particular, because Cold War was really the last campaign that was great in all of these aspects, but arguably this is a worse written campaign than Vanguard and Modern Warfare 3, which are generally considered the worst. I wouldn't even be surprised if the script was completely AI generated. The dialogue most of the time is either just corny, Marvel tier writing, or just completely stilted and feels like no one's actually talking to each other. It feels like we're talking to walls or like talking at each other. And the performances are just not good at all. And personally, I think David Mason is by far the worst character here. The game does take place 10 years after the events of Black Ops 2, but this David Mason just feels like a different guy entirely. The way he talks, the way he acts, it's a different guy. The way he's written, he is a complete moron. I hate him. The most egregious example was during that mission in Vorkuta, where you deal with Alex Mason, and there is a moment where he says verbatim, "Somehow I know he's the key." And throughout all the hallucination levels, he is just like this the entire time. He somehow knows how to get out of it. Somehow, he's not like sort of freaked out by it. He's just kind of running with it. And, like, he's experienced it before, and like he knows what to do. It doesn't make any sense at all. And for some reason, everyone except for Michael Rooker like kind of addresses this. Like, the other two characters are kind of like, they kind of freak out by it a little bit, I guess. But Michael Rooker's the only one that's just outright going, dude, we don't even know what the fuck's happening. And then after a while, he just stops doing that. Funny enough, I think he's the only character that I actually don't dislike. I think I like him mostly because it's Michael Rooker. But I can't even view him as Harper. It's quite literally just Michael Rooker. It's not even Harper anymore. Then you have Emma Kagan, who is the antagonist of the game. Apparently, she's the protege of Sev from Black Ops 6. And I don't really know why. It's never touched on at all. Which makes no sense considering, Marshall from Black Ops 6 is, a part of this game. He doesn't really show up in person too often, but his voice, he talks quite a bit during this game. I would like to touch on the idea of someone he worked with owning the guild, who is the antagonist of both Black Ops 6 and 7. Kagan reminds me of Escharum from Halo Infinite. If you guys remember, that dude, all he did was talk shit over comms, essentially. He would barely ever show up in person, which leaves many questions to me, but it gets to a point where I just stop trying to rationalize things and just start slamming my head on a desk. The ending is honestly quite fine. He contemplates shooting her in the head, but changes his mind. Probably because he regrets killing Menendez. Which, if they're going to go with the ending where you do kill Menendez, I am completely fine with that. It's just, everything that happens in the story just feels so disconnected. It feels like it's part of a different series entirely, because none of this really feels connected to Black Ops 2 at all. Now, of course, the other team members in question besides Mason and Harper, you have Samuels, who was in Black Ops 2 but wasn't really a character most people remember because he didn't really do much, and 50-50, who has a robot arm and a leg. I wish these two actually had an explanation as to why they were part of the team, and I also wish we got to explore these characters more and flesh them out, because they're not fleshed out characters. They're not even well-written characters at that. Their dialogue's not good at all. There was a mission where you explored the past and presumably fears of Samuels and 50-50 and kind of Harper, but that was more of like a boss fight of him getting pissed off. And I thought they were actually going to explore something good, something of substance here. Give us an intriguing story arc or something, man. I'm grasping at straws. I'm just wanting something good out of this. And the levels really do not go anywhere at all. They are all done within the same mission, so we just kind of rushed through each segment within 5 to 10 minutes, and it goes nowhere. Also, they retconned Alex being a shitty father. I don't know whether to find that stupid or just the funniest thing ever. Either way, it was a conscious decision. There's just no way, because we have to restore David's memories of his father, and they show the tree climbing moment, or something similar. It very well could be something different, but I'm just going to take it as that moment from BO2 because it's funny thinking that they retconned that. We also had this hallucination mission about Woods where we go to Angola, and I don't really know why this was here. For one, Woods is dead. The game opens on his gravestone. 2, David didn't even go to Angola. If I had to rationalize this mission existing contextually, knowing about this might have been based off of, the stories Woods may have told him. But I feel like this campaign really only exists for nostalgia baiting purposes, and that's about it. The entire mission, no matter how cool it is visually, had no reason to be here at all. And again, nothing really comes out of this. Now we gotta talk about Raul Menendez, the best villain in the entire franchise. So the first mission of the game was really hyping him up as if he was somehow alive, even though, you know, canonically speaking in this game, Mason popped a cap in his head. But, as it turns out, he was an AI deepfake. And you know what? That would have been a really cool idea to make part of the story, you know? Have that be one of the things that the antagonist does, you know, to try and get under the protagonist's skin, get them further into achieving the goal and all that. It's a shame they dropped it after this one mission and never spoke on it again. Also, it's very ironic to even be bringing up deepfakes anyway, because, you know, this same game has AI-generated calling cards, but, you know, that's a topic for a different day, I suppose. The entire mission, honestly, was a fever dream. I mean, you had falling machetes. You had a goddamn machete strike to kill his ass with. There was only one other plot point that I can even remember off the top of my head, and it was that there was a mole that was giving the guild information. So we learn about the mole right before that mission in Japan that I really like. And this mission in particular had us playing as a B team, essentially. All of these characters they show here, except for one of them, have no bearing on the story whatsoever, because they never come up again. But everyone has been saying this, everyone I've seen has been saying this, but they have just shown that they are way more interesting and have a way better dynamic with each other than our main crew. And you know what? I kind of agree. I like Vermac. I'm glad he's an operator in multiplayer. I love this guy. He's great. But JD Vance over here, he's important. He comes back after this mission, because David goes on a video call with him afterwards, and they briefly and quite awkwardly talk about the mole, and it doesn't go anywhere. Honestly, the dialogue is very stilted and awkward, and I really felt uncomfortable with it. And then Karma just outright, randomly, before another mission, just says that JD Vance was the mole. You don't get to discover this yourself in the story or in a mission or anything. The game has to tell you, because the writers either forgot about it or didn't know how to weave this plot into this rushed mess. And it leads to a boss fight with one of the corniest Disney twist villain-ass lines of dialogue I have ever heard.
Sorry, Mason. Playing the good guy only gets you so far.
Oh yeah, and Karma. They don't even explain why she's here. I don't know what parts of the Black Ops 2 story they took when it came to making this story, because obviously Karma and Harper are alive, and if you played a Black Ops 2, more than likely one of them died in your playthrough. So I really don't know what they went with. I've seen a bunch of theories, but none of it's really confirmed. I would like them to at least confirm something at this point. Or, you know, they could have written it in the game or had moments where they explained it and showed us, you know, but that's expecting, you know, them to do something, I guess. I've been seeing a couple more people than usual popping up online to say how the campaign is actually not that bad, and this is one of the times where I just can't wrap my head around it. Not even talking about the stuff like the Harper fight, that wasn't even my biggest problem, but somehow the story and the characters are even worse than the usual COD standards, which lately weren't good, but they managed to be worse. However, I will admit, this game had an uphill battle for me, because Black Ops 2 is my favorite game in the franchise, as I said earlier, and the favorite campaign in the series easily. And I always wanted a direct sequel to the story, so to eventually get this 13 years later is just so disappointing. Which is really weird, because there's a lot of like nitpicks I have with the multiplayer and zombies, but I actually found myself enjoying those modes. So this game, I don't think is entirely terrible, like everyone else is saying, but god, this campaign is so bad. This video is really only a video dedicated to the campaign because it's what I have the strongest feelings towards, but if you want to see me talk about multiplayer, then let me know. But honestly, I don't think I can talk more about this campaign because this was just upsetting. If you managed to find enjoyment out of this, I deeply envy you, because I wish I could enjoy this. But I guess that's what I get for playing a COD campaign in the big 2025, huh? Like the video and subscribe while you're here, and go check out some of my previous videos, because I do stuff like this all the time. And if you enjoyed the video, good. Now goodbye.